So it looks like we're finally getting a Rhino action figure in the Spider-Man Marvel Legends Retro line, but how good is it, soulmates? If you support what I do, please click subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a single video of mine when it comes out. And if you want to hang out with me and my soulmates, I stream live on YouTube Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to play some superhero games and I would love to see you. And if you'd like to support this channel even more, we now have memberships. Feel free to check out our perks and see what they're all about. People have been wanting a Rhino action figure for the Spider-Man Retro line for the longest time. Personally, he's not my favorite Spider-Man villain. I don't really think that highly of him, but a lot of people do want him. And now that he's here, I think that this action figure is pretty good. This looks like a very nice representation of Rhino. Now that said, this is a complete repaint of the Rhino Build-A-Figure from years back with some very minor retooling. But still, it's a good representation of Rhino, and I like this one better than the Build-A-Figure, to be completely honest. The Build-A-Figure had sort of a glossy paint job that I really did not care for, so the fact that they went matte on this one, or at least more matte, is a definite positive for me. Also, the paint job is a lighter gray, which I feel is more appropriate for the look of Rhino. It looks better to me than the darker coat of paint that was on the Build-A-Figure. He also comes with some new additions. He comes with two new heads, both of which are very good. One is a resting, sort of snarling face, and the other one is a teeth-gritting, angry face, and both of these look loads better than the screaming head that originally came with the Build-A-Figure Rhino, as well as the masked head that just doesn't look that much like the Rhino we all know and love. Thankfully, both of the head sculpts on these have the little eyes on the side of Rhino's head, so it's a little bit more in line with what we've seen on Spider-Man the Animated Series, although this doesn't really look like it's necessarily based on Spider-Man the Animated Series, because on that show, Rhino doesn't have any texture on his costume or anything like that. Whereas here, obviously, there's lots of texture all over the body, and it's very much welcome, because it has that sort of rough feel about the skin that makes it feel more like, well, a rhino. And besides the heads, they've also included a pair of extra hands that are opened up, so Rhino can take a smaller action figure and hold them up by their leg or their arm, or whatever we feel like doing with them. Those were all really nice additions, and also they did some minor retooling on this figure and filled in the peg holes where they would have been after removing the shoulder pads that were on the original Rhino Build-A-Figure. I am looking at this Rhino figure with some amusement because they did fill in the peg holes on his shoulders on this one, whereas on Venom, they didn't bother to fill in the peg holes on that one, and there's a litany of other things going on with him that are just wrong, so compared to Venom, Rhino is an absolute godsend. Also, another thing that I noticed is that Rhino has those old school ball-jointed hip joints, and that's a welcome addition in my mind. I'm a fan of those. I know a lot of people don't care for those old ball-jointed hip joints like Hasbro used to use and Toy Biz used to use, but I've always thought they're pretty great. So seeing them here once again, I don't know if anyone is turned off by them, but I love them and I'm glad to see them again. I like these so much, I wish they would bring them back on a full-time basis, to be honest. Well, now that we're done gushing about this Rhino toy, let's go ahead and talk about some areas of improvement and lend some constructive criticism to this toy, because there is one thing that really jumps out to me when I look at him, and it's hard to ignore after we've seen the latest Marvel Legends. Let's talk about the torso articulation, the chest joint that we're seeing on a lot of toys these days. We see it on Spider-Man, we see it on Hulk, and I kinda wanna see it on Rhino now. I can't help but think that Rhino would look a lot better if he had that chest articulation. I don't mind the waist articulation, but now that the chest articulation exists, yeah, it would probably work really good if they had retooled the torso a little bit just to accommodate some chest articulation, or given him an entirely new torso altogether. Does it really break Rhino that he doesn't have chest articulation? No, but I think he would have been a better toy overall if he did have it, and we'd be able to get him in some more dynamic poses, and it'd be easier to make him look like he's charging at Spider-Man, and all that good stuff. Or the Hulk too, because Rhino fights the Hulk, by the way. he's kind of an enemy of both Spider-Man and the Hulk, believe it or not. Also, giving him an entirely new torso would have made room for some butterfly joints, and it's really hard to get down with action figures that do not have butterfly joints these days. For me, butterfly joints is such a staple that you gotta get it in there. All the DC Multiverse figures by McFarlane have butterfly joints on them. A lot of Marvel Legends have butterfly joints, and I think that the big guys like Rhino here need to have some butterfly joints too, so they can do stuff like bear hugs and sonic claps and all that good stuff. And Rhino here is coming at us with his 2015 era Articulation, whenever he was released. I don't remember, but it feels really old. It feels 7 years old, and yeah, if you look at the timeline, you'll probably find that's about how old this mold is. Other than that, I really can't think of any other way to improve this Rhino action figure, because I think if those ideas were implemented on Rhino, we'd have an absolutely perfect Rhino toy. No more room for improvement on that one. However, there is another area that I do want to talk about regarding this figure, and that's the price point. This is being sold for $38.99, so the prices have gone up again. And we're $1 away from a DC Multiverse mega figure. This bad boy is $1 less than Swamp Thing, than Darkseid, Steppenwolf, and soon to come Titan Joker and Clayface. And you have to ask yourself when looking at this versus a DC Multiverse mega figure, is that really worth about the same price, a dollar difference? Would you rather have Rhino, or would you rather go $1 up and get a bigger toy with possibly more going for it, with new sculpts and different characters and such? Well, now that we've gotten Rhino, I wonder what Spider-Man villain we're going to get next. What I'm hoping for most of all is Dr. Octopus, and I'm surprised more people haven't said Dr. Octopus, but I would love to see a Spider-Man the Animated Series Dr. Octopus, or even an Armani suit Dr. Octopus, because I've always been partial to that look. Well, Soulmates, what do you think of this retro Rhino? Is this one that you want for your own collection, or is this one that maybe you're going to pass on because maybe the price has just gone too high? Or do you feel like you wanted something more from Rhino? Also, what character are you hoping for next? Are you hoping for Doc Ock like me, or are you hoping for a completely different character? I don't know, guys. Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. I'll be back again soon with some more thoughts about new comic book toy news. And until then, with love from me to you, bye-bye.